Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they finished change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn Dugar. You guys know where to follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, @ Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who is either watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. That's Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Appreciate the love and support from everyone on there. If you're listening right now on audio, go ahead, hop over to YouTube, just hit subscribe, hit like, and you come right back. Don't really care whether you watch or listen there, but the subscriptions, they really, really help. Thank you so much. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that is CKid206. And yes, hop on over to our YouTube channel for our listeners, whether it be Spotify, iHeart, Apple, wherever you're listening. Just go in there, go ahead and hop on YouTube and search us up, Seahawks Man to Man, and we'll have a bunch more content coming. Make sure you subscribe. We got a lot coming to you, but man, a tale of two halves for the Seahawks' first game, home opener. And yeah, a tale of two halves. That's where it starts, because the first half, Mike, woo, that offensive line. I was really going to text you. Do you think we can do any better out there if we were blocking?
The answer is no there. However, though, the Seahawks start the Mike Macdonald era off, 1-0. Good for them. Beat the Broncos. What was the score? 26-20. Good game by their defense throughout, which is why I don't necessarily think it was a tale of two halves, because the defense played the same the whole game. And I want to give them credit for that. They were consistent. It was special teams and offense that was just like, is it the preseason still? It looks very much like preseason-y football for those guys. Rookie D. Williams back there, a couple of shaky decisions on punts, including the muffing is not a decision, right? But trying to pick it up versus falling on it, huge no-no. Catch the ball, but stuff like that. False starts. I think Chenault had one. Stone had one. Just bad ball on offense. But credit to the defense, though, and that's where I want to start. That's Mike Macdonald's side of the ball. I felt like they played what they hope will be Mike Macdonald ball. And I believe I've talked about this on here before. When I'm trying to evaluate a new coach, in the NFL, in college too, but recruiting is such a big part of that. But when I'm in the NFL in particular, I'm trying to evaluate a coach. I want to see if what you say and what you preach applies on Sunday. That's how you good coaching. Now, Mike calls the plays as well, so some schemey stuff will come into play there. Same thing with like a McVay or a Shanahan, where you're also the play caller on one side of the ball. That obviously matters. But generally speaking, your head coach is a CEO. He is the overseer of all the operations, fourth down decisions, special teams, defense, offense, right? The branding, the leadership, the mentality, all of those things that Pete was really good at. He was good at that for over a decade. Does all that stuff going to apply to Mike? Particularly on defense, his bread and butter, the way he want to play going to translate. And there's a lot of ways that he's conveyed how he wants to play. The one that stands out to me is, and it's the genesis for the title of the show, is on the wall that leads from the locker room to the outdoor practice facility inside the Virginia Mason Athletic Center. On the wall, it says, "A style nobody wants to play." Right? And that's one of like 17 mantras it feels like Mike has, but that's a big one, because guys on both sides of the ball really have been adamant about reinforcing that among his messages when I've asked them about it leading up to this game. A style that nobody wants to play, right? And I asked Trey Brown to describe that style to me. He said, running and hitting. It's simple as that, And I liked it for the defense, but Chris, the more I'm thinking about it, running can apply to the offense as well, and the hitting can be the blocking. So it's kind of all encompassing, and then of course special teams is nothing
Double
but running and
entendre.
hitting. Yeah, damn near triple if you want to add the special teams. And so that mantra is stuck with me because I wanted to see that in week 1 for a couple reasons. One, because that has nothing to do with scheme. As much as Mike Macdonald is known as scheme wizard guy, he's been telling us for like the last month or so, both publicly and privately, scheme's a little overrated. X's and O's or whatever. You can watch our film. We're not reinventing the wheel on defense. Our goal is to play a certain way because that's what's going to breed success. Sure, we're going to have a good scheme. No one plans on having a bad one. But the point is to have a style and then that no one wants to play, and that was part 1. So I wanted to see that just because that's what he's been preaching. You want to see the stuff that, you preach get implemented on Sundays. The other part is I knew, and the Seattle defense knew, that Denver's preferred style of offense was going to put that to the test. Chris, they don't trust Bo Nix to throw farther than you can throw. I swear they don't. Like we just actually tested how far you can throw. I want to say like 2 weeks ago when we were playing football. How far did you throw? Like 40 yards or something like
45.
that? 45, right? And that was, I don't know if you hitched up once or twice or whatever, but at least a wind up, to take a step or two and let it fly, right? I think Sean Payton might trust you to throw further than Bo Nix.
Oh yeah.
I swear. He has no idea. He's no faith in this kid, at least right now. Maybe he does. Maybe he'll grow into that. But it was just mind-boggling, Chris, that something we talked about on the pre-show podcast with Nick Kosmider, beat writer for the Athletic, covers the Broncos. Sean McVay, he said when they were looking at draft picks, they were like, all right, who do we take? Looking at the quarterbacks, they're evaluating the numbers in the film. Sean said they took out the bubble screens and the fluff that you manufacture completions with. It was like, let's look at the other stuff. He was like, Bo worked good on the other stuff. Cool. Preseason, Bo ain't doing nothing but checking it down and throwing simple stuff. All right, maybe that's the preseason. Chris, you get to week 1. How many times did Bo throw the ball today?
47, I think.
Let's look this up. Because I remember this was a funny exchange I had post-game with, I don't need to say who, but someone with the Seahawks. I ran into them after the game. I was like, hey, man, do you know he threw it 42 times and didn't hit a $140? They was like, oh, damn, really? I was like, yeah, man, it's real deal. And he was like, oh, shoot, man, that's all he did in college too. And just kind of laughed it off. It was like they knew the plan was if we rally and tackle, they ain't nothing they can do with us, really. And that's what it was. And the official number, Bo threw it 42 times and threw for 138 yards. That's 3.28, I believe, 3.29 yards per attempt. Chris, that is disgusting. I looked it up. Do I still have that up on my tab? Yeah, I got like 20 tabs open right now. Peep this. I'm a stat guy to back some stuff up. So, Chris, I wanted to see, has anyone ever thrown it 42 times and only averaged 3.3 yards per attempt? So the data I went and looked at, this is since 2000. So for someone to throw 42 times, there's only 3 people since 2000 to ever throw for fewer yards or yards per attempt on at least 42 tries. Those 3 people are Jesse Palmer of the Giants in 2003, Ben Roethlisberger in 2021 season, and Bruce Gradkowski of the Bucks in 2006. Those guys all were under 3 yards per attempt. So pretty much for a guy who threw it that many times, that was one of the worst performances you'll see in terms of production. One of the least productive performances. It was awful. Threw 2 picks, and it was all dinking and dunking. I was talking to defensive guys in the locker room. They were like, yeah, we knew that's all they could do. That's all they could do is dink and dunk up and down the field. And the way to stop that, though, is to run and hit. Because we've seen teams beat them like that, too. You know why? Because they can't tackle. And, Chris, they was tackling their butts off today. And it was that type of – you could see the mentality of it. Last year, I feel like we only saw like 2 guys hitting. And mostly it was just spoon. This year, it was like, oh, or this game at least. It's like, oh, everybody can hit. Rayshawn, J. Love, Tyrell, Trey Brown, everybody. All the guys up front, not a lot of sacks today, but so like Chris, when I watched and I was walking away from walking to my car from the press box, I was like, you know what? Good for Mike Macdonald, that is, not me. Although I had a good day too, if anyone was wondering. I did. I had a good day. I ate good. Got to tailgate with the homies. But anyway, I was like, good for Mike Macdonald, because that's always what you want to see in that first game. It's like, did all the stuff that we talked about translate, not just scheme, mentality, and attitude? And the offense, Chris, tried to make it hard as hell on them. They were like, you think you guys are gonna get challenged today? Watch this. First time you touch the field, you're in your own red zone. What? That was awful stuff. And then they allowed like 8 yards in 3 plays. So like that's kind of Mike Macdonald ball. We'll see. It's one game, but for a 1 game sample, I thought at least that side of the ball lived up to what their coach was like, does preach. You know what I mean? I'm messing up all my grammar right now, but you get what I'm saying. Coach preached a thing, taught a thing, and they did the thing. When you hire a coach, that's all you want. Honestly, that's the same thing when you draft a player too. It's like, does he do the stuff we drafted him for, right? Same thing when you hire a coach. Does all the reasons we fell in love with him in the interview show up? And on defense, very, very encouraged today, Chris, by their ability to do that throughout the game, even when their offense was playing like crap.
You ain't lying, man. That offense was crap, as you mentioned. But so bad. I also want to look at the defense and the aspect of the run game and stuffing the run. I thought they did a really good job on 25 attempts. The Broncos ran it for 99 yards. They couldn't do nothing. Like they tried to run it. They had a few bursts here and there, but for the most part, they really couldn't do anything outside of a couple of busted plays of guys. I think they played man on one of them, and Bo Nix was able to just find a crease and take off, right? And that, of course, gashes the averages and the run attempts in that scenario. But for the most part, I really was impressed by how well they played the run. And to your point, Mike, about
can I give you a number on that to help you with that?
Go ahead.
Yep. This is it, and I'm gonna let you go. The Denver running backs had 20 attempts. So this pulls Bo Nix's runs out of the sample, like you were just talking about. The Broncos running backs had 20 attempts and gained just 64 yards. That's 3.2 yards per attempt. Looks like this dude who's got an accent in his name, he had a long run of 12 yards and he fumbled on that. They recovered it, but so even then they smacked the dude and had him fumble. They ran for 4 first downs all game. The running backs did. That's pretty bad. So to your point, they basically shut down the designed runs.
Yes. And that was the one thing that everyone was talking about in the offseason. Oh yeah, they have all these great talent in the DB room. The linebackers, we don't know much about. But what about that D line? Okay, they bring back Leonard Williams. Okay, they go out and draft Byron Murphy. Okay, Jay Reed, he is a veteran. He's been pretty much a cornerstone for this D line. What's he going to do? Oh, the Seahawks also bring in Big Jonathan Hankins, who is someone that is supposed to stuff the run. And for the most part, as you mentioned with the backup stats and backing up with the stats and eliminating Bo Nix's scrambles, okay, they did that effectively. And that is a great sign in my eyes, because that is the one cornerstone, the one area that they struggled. I mean, I guess I can't say struggled. They were just ass. They weren't even good. They were bad. Last season, they couldn't stop the run at all. And for them to make quite a big jump, and you can see it just with the tackling. That's huge, right? Rallying to the football. That's great. And I thought that is one thing that caught my eye, especially with how often they were on the field. They played a lot of defense on Sunday against the Broncos. They was out there all day. It felt as if the game should have ended an hour ago. It was that long. They were out there all game because the Seahawks offense, for the most part in that first half, was embarrassing. And the defense said, okay, put it on our shoulders. We got you. We're going to win you this football game. And that's kind of the mentality they had. I forget who said it in the presser, but I think it might have been, I'm not going to guess, but one of the players at the end of the game in the post-game press conference basically said, yeah, we got it. We can win the game for you guys. And that's basically what they did. They went out there and just played defense the entire game, did their best. Obviously, they gave up that late touchdown at the end of the game with about a minute left. Whatever. It still counts, obviously, but the biggest thing is I think they improved in an area that a lot of people were concerned about. And I think that's a good start for them because now they see it. Okay, you know what? We do have a good, strong run defense with this unit. The tackling is better. Our DBs are strapping stuff up. Guys were not open. There was a lot of tight windows. Bo Nix threw 2 interceptions, and those 2 interceptions were awful. Stared down Cortland Sutton on that first one where Julian Love gets the interception at the 1-yard line. And the second one, I don't know what he saw because watching the replay, there was 3 Seahawks. I honestly don't know what he thought. No, for real. I saw the replay and Bo Nix, what do you see? And if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm asking, what do you see here? I'm not trying to be mean, but we're trying to win a football game, and you're supposed to.
Right. That was bad, man.
Yeah, you gotta. What do you see? Tell me what you think is happening here, because you just threw it right to Reek, and you threw it right to Julian. It wasn't a look off. He was staring at the left side the entire time and threw it right at Julian. Those are things that make me wonder, damn, how much did Sean Payton hate Russell Wilson? Because you punted on that $85 million in the hole, and you're going to run bubble screens the entire game, 3 yards a pop, and run the football and be surprised and say, we got 20 points, though. Mike, when you say at the end of the season, that'll get you fired, I feel as if Sean Payton might be getting fired after the season. If this continues, if he's able to go out and just try to do that the entire season, there's no way he makes it past week 8. Because Bo Nix is just not it. Now, obviously, I think the Seahawks defense is pretty darn good. And we'll see as the season progresses because they're going to get tested very soon here. 2 weeks, they get a play at home against the Dolphins, who struggled early and then were able to figure it out later. So I say all that to say I was really impressed by the run game defensively, excuse me. And I wasn't surprised about what they did defensively in the passing game because I read the scouting report. Mike, I'm sure you did. I'm thinking, yeah, Bo Nix probably going to do a bunch of screens. And my golly, I'm going to be excited to go back and watch the film because it's just going to be dinking and dunking in screens. The film might be 30 minutes. It should be an hour just because I swear the Seahawks defense is out there forever. But they knew what was expected of Bo Nix, and they were on it. He couldn't throw the ball down the field. There was nothing there. He either had to run, scramble using his legs, or he had some terrible throws. And I'm not going to lie, he did have a couple that he missed that, I don't know, a competent quarterback would hit, especially your guy in stride, but I don't know if he's that guy. Obviously, it's his first game in the NFL. This kid could go on to be a Pro Bowler in the next year or two. Who knows? But based off what I saw on Sunday, there is no reason that he should have went 12th overall in the NFL draft. I just can't see it. Mike and I were talking off wax, and Mike was saying, you can just draft the dude in the 3rd round if that's the case. If you want to dink and dunk, just draft him in the 3rd or 4th round. Cool. You can get an offensive lineman, linebacker, whatever you want. So, hey, it is what it is. I'm happy the Seahawks got the win there. They're off to a good start. It makes our jobs easier because who wants to listen to us talk about them losing their opening game against Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos? Probably nobody. So, good win for those guys. Definitely on the defensive side, great things that we all saw. And then obviously offensively, they figured it out in the second half. I think dudes just played better, straight up. The run game was effective. Ken Walker, that's why I drafted him 3rd round in our fantasy draft, because I figured, you know what, 1,000-yard season, first game, 100 yards. What do you have, 20 carries, couple of big plays out of the backfield, catching it from Geno, things breaking down. Where's Ken? And he makes magic happen. So Ken catches the ball. I think he ran it actually. Nonetheless, he flips a dude over his head. He's running the football, flips the dude over his head. He has one dude on his leg trying to tackle him. He just wouldn't go down. I guess to the title of our show, Runnin and Hittin, something Ken embodies every time he touches the football. And also home run factor. Anytime he touches the football, it could be a touchdown. And you saw that in the second half on that first possession when they gave it to him on an outside run, blocked up perfectly, and all he had to do was just run by everyone. Easy money. So, solid first start, a really shaky first half for the offense. To your point, Mike, I guess maybe we should tone back on what did I start off saying the show? I basically stated that, obviously a shaky first half and second half, things got better. But to your point, yeah, shaky for the offense. Defensively, I think it was a totality that they played a strong game for full 60 minutes. So a lot to learn from this. Obviously, they're going to go back on the film and learn more themselves. I'm sure Geno will want a couple of throws back himself, but what more could Geno do when the offensive line is giving him 2 seconds in the first half? You saw what happens when protection's fine, and I think we've talked about that enough, and people have an understanding, okay, yeah, when Geno has time, he's good.
Yeah, I think the other part, beyond the X's and O's, that was good, I can say it was kind of encouraging from all sides of the ball, really, but particularly as pertains to the offense, is, so Mike Macdonald is generally, you guys can probably see this a little bit if you watch his press conferences too. He's pretty stoic, kind of not emotionless per se, but definitely not. He's very different than Pete in like the rah-rah sense, right? Like Pete was real bubbly, he's bouncing up and down the sidelines, like that's his energy. Big play happens, you can tell. If you just watch, you got a camera on Pete, you can tell when it's a big play, you can tell a big good play, and you can tell when it's a big play in the opposite direction. Like you can just kind of tell, you just see him. Mike is very stoic, kind of matter of fact, real composed. I'd say Pete didn't have composure, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? Some guys are just more energetic than others. It's the difference between like Richard Sherman and Bobby Wagner, right? Like Bobby is not very demonstrative cat, he's pretty locked in, composed. It was like Sherman barking at people, things like that, and there is something to that from your head coach in terms of like personality that you would like for it to carry over. And it's when things aren't going your way, can you remain, even keeled? I think Tyrell Dotson called Mike Macdonald even Steven, and that's important in a lot of ways. And I thought the offense in particular kind of embodied that too. Pete had some of that as well, but you guys could see towards the end, it just wasn't coming across, right? A lot of the stuff that Pete preached and taught and believed in on a fundamental level, it was fine. Like every coach says that stuff and believes in that same stuff. It's the getting your guys to do it. Pete didn't forget how to coach. Either did Shane Waldron or Clint Hurt. They all know ball, but it's about like, is what you're repping and what you're teaching coming through? That's all that really matters, right? Anybody can say run the ball and play good defense. Me and Chris could tell, me and Chris walk into a job interview right now when they fire Sean Payton by week 9 or whatever, and they ask us, hey, Mike and Chris, what do you guys believe in? Well, yeah, running the ball and playing good defense. How can we get a group of guys to do that, though? In particular, how can we get them to do that in the face of adversity, And Geno made a good point that I was thinking of as well in the second half. We've seen some coordinators around the league and with the Seahawks, push comes to shove, their kind of default setting is, all right, let's throw the ball. That'll get us back in the game. That'll get us back going. And while that's fine sometimes, if you want your bread and butter to be your run game, then you got to believe in that, particularly if the game script allows for it. Now, if you're down 20 or whatever, nothing you can do, just try to get points, right? But if the game's within reach, they were down 13-9 at half. I think they got a 3-and-out or something to start the game. So basically, start the third. So basically, you're looking at an even game. It's 0-0 in effect. Even though you're down 4, by game script, you can run whatever you want. And I think 5 of their 6 plays to start the game were runs. And running the ball inherently is not just better than throwing it. You still got to be good at blocking, which they weren't in the first half. But I thought that was really notable from Grub, because that was, like Geno said post game, that was a real like instance where you could see coordinators get pass happy. We've seen it. Saw Shoddy do it. Saw Shane do it. Bevel not as much, more towards the end. In the post Marshawn years, you saw Bev get that way sometimes. And some of that had to do with the quarterback too. He likes to be the hero. But Geno is one of those guys who's like, yo, no. Do not give up on who we want to be. Because you remember there was a clip, I want to say either last year or 2 years ago, where it's Geno in the second half of a game against the Panthers, sitting on the sideline telling Shane Waldron, keep running it, keep believing in it, keep trusting it, right? Like, because that's important, because DK this week said something that other players and Mike Macdonald have been saying as well about what they want their bread and butter to be, what they want to hang their hat on offense. It's running the ball. Geno told us, he said the first meeting this year with Grub was like, hey, we had all those explosive pass plays at Washington. We're going to do that too. But best believe we are going to run this rock. First meeting, he said that. I remember Charles Cross was telling me a little bit about that meeting as well. And it's like, that made all the old linemen light up. It was like, okay, yeah. Because that's how we get down, They're not scared to throw it, but you get my point. And to stay true to that and not get all panicky, that was important too. Particularly in the first game. I feel like a lot of the offensive players, particularly the veterans, are probably looking at Grubb or just curious, like, all right, how's coach gonna handle this? We can still run it, but does he believe in it still? And he did, and it paid off. Like I said, I think 5 of the 6 plays in the third quarter to start the third quarter were runs, and then tapped by that Ken Walker touchdown that you alluded to. I think it was 23 yards. He front flips into the end zone because this game was all about Ken Walker showing us how great of an athlete he is. He's suplexing guys while he has the ball. He's front flipping from 4 or 5 yards out. Like, yeah, Ken is just a freak athlete. That's why he was like a top 40 pick or whatever. But in terms of what I was looking for from the new regime, that definitely stood out because I think it was Jordan Brooks who told me last year or 2 years ago a line that it's coach speak, but it's something I believe in with football. You are what you emphasize, and if you're going to emphasize the run game and you say that's going to be your bread and butter, man, let me see it. The first half stunk. You still going to be what you believe in, or are you about to just get all panicky and try to get it all back on the first drive with a bunch of go balls to DK versus Patrick Surtain? Because that wouldn't have worked. We saw that. In the first half. So and beyond the X's and O's, and we'll get to the specifics of the O-line play and some other stuff, that really stood out. That Grub and the players were all like, hey, that sucked. They got in the locker room like, hey, guys, to quote Chris Kidd, we were ass. Well, what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to be us. Julian Love talked a little bit about the difference between last year and this year. Last year, in the second half against the Rams in the season opener, they folded. It was, they didn't finish strong. They didn't stick to who they were. They let another team come in here. They're supposed to be in a rebuild year and whip their butt in front of their fans, right? This time that didn't happen. And it just all of this, like, I want to call it intangible stuff, but it kind of falls in that category of, all right, are you going to build an identity? And I thought today was a very encouraging step forward in terms of what building with an identity looks like on both sides of the ball. You have the things you want to be good at. All right. Can you do those things? And then can you stay true to those things in the face of adverse situation? Man, it was a really good start, man. I was really encouraged by all of that. The next test is obviously to do it next week. But for now, on Sunday night, while we're recording, I was very encouraged. That was they're gonna watch that film, like you said, Chris, and be like, damn, that was good. Like, it's gonna be a lot of teach tape plays out there, even on, like, I feel like on Ken Walker's touchdown, they're not even gonna focus on Ken when they show it in film. They're gonna focus on Charles Cross looking for work and just bodying a linebacker. I think Alex Singleton, 10, 15 yards away from the play, just looking for violence. It goes to the title of the show. That's running and that's hitting, whether you have the ball or not. I thought that was a lot of good things that were representative of all the stuff that Mike's been saying for months. That was really good, because you look around the league, some of these first year coaches, they didn't look like that. I'm sure the Falcons did not. That ain't what Raheem Morris been talking about. That's not it. That ain't what in Carolina, that ain't what Dave Canales been talking about. I know what Dave's been preaching.
Michael Penix.
That's probably a topic for another show, but yeah, it might be Penix gonna play this year. But, like, that's not what Raheem been talking about. I know that's not what Dave Canales been talking about in Carolina. I thought, without looking at the film of some of these other games, you could definitely see what Gerard Mayo and Mike Macdonald were preaching come to life. You didn't see it with the Raiders. I know Antonio Pierce, he's a damn linebacker. I'm sure he was probably preaching run defense. Boy, J.K. Dobbins looked like Barry Sanders against him today. Like that. That's not what he was talking about. So it's not a given that everything's going to translate. And obviously everything offensively didn't translate. We'll talk about Grub here when we get to Twitter questions. But look around the league. Look at some of these teams and listen to go read about what their coaches have been preaching that's going to hang their hat on, and then go look at how they looked in week one. There was a lot of butt whippings and a lot of stuff that just wasn't the brand of ball. Win or lose, a lot of teams just didn't play the brand of ball that they wanted to, and it was reflected in the final score. So kudos to Mike Macdonald and his staff for making it look like it was supposed to, week one.
Well, there you have it. You did mention getting to Ryan Grubb and a lot of the questions regarding the offense and the offensive line. So without further ado, it's time for the people to ask questions, and we give out the answers, hopefully. So, without further ado, let's get rolling. Our first one comes from Shiv Ramdas. He wants to know, is Bo Nix that bad, or is the Seahawks defense that good? How about this, man? It's a combination of two. If you want to give percentages, I'd say 70%. Seahawks defense being 60. I don't even know. Maybe 50-50. But Bo Nix is ass. So maybe I should say 60 of it is just Bo just being terrible. And then the 40 is the defense. Because I don't want to slight the defense too much, because I feel as if any other quarterback can make half the throws that he should have been able to make as a 12th overall pick in the NFL draft. I feel as if they probably move the ball more. But then again, back to our talking point about running and hitting, they couldn't run the ball well. And yeah, so I would say 60% of Bo just being straight buns, and then 40% the Seahawks defense. Mike, where do you stand?
I'm not going to be too hard on Bo in that regard. I do think that every quarterback has limitations except for Mahomes. Boy, it's cold.
Crazy.
It's so cold. Every quarterback has limitations. I'm about to make up a word here, I think. It's more so about how exploitable your limitations are. Some are easier than others. For instance, like Lamar Jackson, high-level quarterback, high-level thrower, high-level runner. Outside the numbers, he is, I would say, well below average thrower of the deep ball outside the number. That's a harder deficiency to exploit, which is why you usually don't see it exploited until it gets to the playoffs when the teams are better. Lamar can just win a couple MVPs off being a generational talent as a runner and a really good thrower in the middle of the field who can adjust his arm angles. But then teams get in the playoffs and are like, hey, buddy, you're going to have to go outside these numbers eventually. Let's see you do it. And they have the corners to do it, typically. And then for some reason, the Ravens don't draft like good outside the numbers receivers, really. So like with Bo, to bring it back to him, his weakness, which is throwing it, further than 10 yards. I'm embellishing a little bit, but you guys get it. His particular weakness is really easy to, I feel like, exploit as long as you can tackle. Like, that's it. It doesn't, there's some scheme stuff required, but for the most part, it's like, can we just get to the ball and tackle? And we'll probably be okay. And the other part of why that's exploitable with this particular roster, which is probably why I wouldn't have drafted him so high, is outside of Javonte Williams, they don't have a bunch of like get busy with the ball in their hands guys. Like that's the other part of why I'm so puzzled by the Broncos. I know it's in a Broncos pod, but like if I was going to take a guy whose skill set is that, then give me like a bunch of Ken Walker type skill sets, but not necessarily all like they have to be good as Ken, but like what's that Shaheed dude from the Saints? Like even this Marvin Mims guy that they have, I would rather get him the ball more than whoever number 17 was. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It sounds French, though. Yeah, I don't know how the announcers were saying it. Devon. His name Devon. Let's go with that. Who's number 17? Yeah, like, he wasn't going nowhere. No yak. Get some yak guys if you're going to build an offense like that. I feel like to have one yak guy, and it's Javonte Williams. So that was the other weird thing. It's just harder to exploit, whereas I feel like other teams have the dink and dunk stuff. Like Tom Brady has a lot of offenses like that. I feel like particularly in the latter portion of his career, but they had those yak weapons, even if it was just a shifty white guy. Like I really feel like the Broncos need a shifty white guy in the slot, or an Amon-Ra St. Brown type skill set. CD. I know I'm naming all pros, but the skill set is more important. Even JSN has better yak skills than I feel like all of the Broncos receivers. That was just it's a weird setup. So I do think the defense is good. I do think Bo has some obvious limitations. I just think his limitations are much easier to exploit. Like even look at someone like Prime Russ. Russ's limitation was like in the intermediate area, in the middle of the field. That's a pretty specific limitation. That's why it was so hard for teams to exploit it, and it took like a decade for him to like really stink. So I just think Bo has a much more exploitable limitation. And the Seahawks, to Mike Macdonald's credit, saw that and were like, we rally and tackle, boys. They won't score. They obviously did score, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Glenn Bowers, other than adjusting the use of tight ends to help with blocking, what other O-line adjustments did Grub and Huff make at halftime?
I think, the obvious one, I don't think it was a lot of halftime adjustments. Like I was just watching the condensed replay of the game when me and Chris were about to start recording. It's just like a little snapshot of each play. And some of those schemes were pretty similar to the stuff that we've seen them run. It wasn't like they reinvented the wheel, to steal, Mike's language. It was, to Chris's point, playing better in a lot of instances. Like there was one play that got blown up in the first half, a run play. I think it was like Lakin and Noah were kind of off on the timing of reaching their guy. I think Lakin pulled on it. And they ran a very similar version of that in the second half, and it worked. The blocks were there. Sometimes it's just as simple as timing it up right. Maybe there's some running back footwork involved. I'm not sure. But in general, it felt like Grubb said, let's just be us. Let's trust our scheme and our system more so than like, all right, here's all the good run plays. Let's start running those now. That's really just not how coordinators think, in general. Sometimes you adjust stuff when a guy gets hurt. Stone had to come in pretty early. Maybe you adjust like, hey, let's help out Stone here, give him a chip here and there or whatever. But without watching the film, it really just felt like it was more of a mentality thing versus, all right, all those run plays we had in the first half, those stunk. Let's run the good ones now. From all my talking with coaches and players, it just feels like that's not how it goes, barring, a quarterback getting hurt or a running back getting hurt or something. If you got all your same guys, you run a lot of the same stuff. I think the other thing that you can do, though, if your O-line's not super nice, if you just can't line up and knock guys off the ball, like you're generally screwed if that's the case. But one of the things that you see a little bit in Grubb's offense is the motions. Motions can get team. It can kind of change the angles on some of the blocks, particularly with tight ends and the edge guys. You can get the perimeter a little bit differently depending on how you move your tight ends. You can move the linebackers and kind of change what angle they're coming from, which gets to be really important if you got guards climbing to them, particularly in some too high stuff. So, and you'll see more of that, as the season goes on. I don't think they needed to do that stuff against Denver. I think that as long as guys hit the point of attack well, the linebackers that they were playing were going to be vulnerable to the explosives. And what do you know? So they didn't need to get tricky against these guys, just do their stuff. So I think that, to the point of the question, motion is the short answer for that. And really, honestly, who's really good at that? Seahawks see it all the time. It's Shanahan. The Niners have not had a bunch of world beaters up front when they've beaten the Seahawks. They have Trent Williams and some other good linemen, not great linemen. What happens is all that motion and stuff just confuses. It gets guys taking a false step the wrong way. I mean, I was talking to some Broncos writers after this. I was like, you guys might not see much of Cody later in the season because teams are just going to be running the ball at him. That's just how it works. That's why he's bounced around, One of the reasons he's bounced around, because the linebackers, man, you get them flowing, you change what a guy's key should be, a shift here, whatever, they run right at you, So I think that's going to be something Grubb probably deploys more often to try to change the angles in the run game, particularly if George Fant has to miss, several weeks here.
This next one comes from Phil Birnbaum at based_Phil95. Is it panic time at right tackle?
Oh, heavy sigh. If George has to miss some time, it might be, Chris. Not going to lie.
I'll be honest, though. I thought it was panic time because Abe wasn't back.
Oh, you was panicking already.
Yeah. Once there was no good information about Abe Lucas, when you guys would ask, hey, what's the update on Abe? And, I don't want to get into that right now. Or there's no update. What? I knew the offensive line was going to be a problem because the only one that is solid and that we've seen is Charles Cross. And outside of that, it's a bunch of, if, hopefully, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good old line. I was hoping for the best. But yeah, panic was hit back 3 months ago when the update of Abe Lucas, we're still going through some things. He should be good to go by training camp. Training camp comes and he's not ready. Oh, well, we're going to go through the preseason and we'll hope for No Abe Lucas, problem. And to your point, Mike, George Fant, don't know any updates, don't know the latest on him. If he's going to miss time, it could become scary hours, dare I say?
So you're probably right. But in the Seahawks defense, You know, I guess I'll play devil's advocate here but the devil don't need no advocates, but still, I'll do it anyway. The Seahawks now, by the time we record this, George could be fine, right? I mean, it looked bad, but I saw Darrell Taylor get carted off on the stretcher 1 week and then play the next week. So I believe in anything can happen from 1 week to the next. If it is bad, though, the Seahawks are in effect down to their third string right tackle. I don't know any team that has a good third string right tackle. Like, just to be fair, I don't think that's just isolated to the Seahawks. Like, even if your right tackle is all pro and your backup right tackle is like decent, if both of those dudes go down, you're probably just screwed. Just across the league. I don't even think that's a Seahawks specific problem, to be fair to them. I also do think it might be time to panic if George has to be out for a little bit. Because here's the thing about O-line play. If you're just not good, there's chances are there's just nothing you're great at that you can work around. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when people will be like, oh, your O-line's bad, you guys got to run the ball more. I'm like, what makes you think they'd be good at that? You know, that requires being good. It requires being athletic. It requires being tough and physical and relentless, you know, and having a certain mindset. If you just got a bad O-line, it's not like they're only going to be bad at one thing. They're probably bad at a lot of stuff, you know. So I do think that's going to be a problem area. I do think they're perhaps a little bit better equipped to handle it than some other years past because of familiarity, because of coaching. Well, actually, I wouldn't say coach. I don't know anything about Scott Huff quite yet. But I do feel like if Stone is your third guy, it's probably better than some other teams' third guys, where I do think they're going to get in trouble. Perhaps not like right away, but where they're going to get in trouble is when the other team has a premier guy, because that's just going to throw everything
Jalen
away.
Phillips a premier guy?
No, I don't think they see a premier guy till the Lions, and that would be Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh, that's not good. That's in a few weeks.
That man is dangerous, real dangerous.
Did you see what he did to the Rams O lineman? They lost Note Boom and they went down to their third string left tackle. And did you see what happened?
No, I missed it. I was in transit on that.
Well, wow. Mike, as you say, whooping. Aiden Hutchinson just whooping that man's ass all game. And Sean McVay, he was doing his best. They were bringing tight ends to chip. Cooper Kupp had to chip. Imagine being a receiver like, damn, I got to help block Aiden Hutchinson because we're down to our third string left tackle. Continue, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, it's tough. It is very tough. That said, they went into Detroit last year with 2 backup tackles and did just fine. That was probably their best game of the year at tackle. And that was Jake Curran and Stone Forsythe, I believe. And they went and handled a team that had just beat the Chiefs the week before, in Arrowhead. So who knows? Like I said, I do think they're a little better equipped to handle it, but it's just going to be tough. I really think it'll just mostly be a problem when there's a premier guy. So, yeah, Aiden. The next week there's the Giants. That's a problem. The next week after that is the Niners. That's a problem. Like that stretch right there. That's tough. That's tough stuff right there. Detroit, those front lines are no joke. Like I feel like that could be an issue. I think the Lions also have Marcus Davenport, if I'm not mistaken, and he's like maybe not a well-known name for the Seahawks fan base, but I've watched a decent amount of him. He might be one of the strongest linemen I've ever seen. I saw him put Dwayne Brown on his butt a couple years ago, and I was like, oh my God, that guy's strong. May have to correct me on that, but I believe they have him. So I do think it's only time to panic if George is out for a little bit, but the panic is in the Lions. Davenport is. The panic might not totally set in for a few weeks. I think you can get by against the Dolphins and the Patriots without that. After that, though, it might be time to hold hands and pray, boys. It might be time.
Step back kicks drops in. What should fans expect from the offense going forward with the evaluation of the offensive line?
That's a good question. Here's the thing. I'm willing to cut Grub a little slack here. Like I said, I just praised Grub in the previous segment. Because it's just hard, man. It's hard to call stuff not believing that your guys are going to block it up right. You know what I mean? Think about that for a second.
No, you ain't lying. Think about this, Mike. Julian Love gets an interception at the 1. Offensive line been stanking the joint up all first half. In Ryan Grubb's head, he's like, damn, I can't run the football. Can I dare try that? So he says, you know what? We're going to roll Geno to the left. All you got to do is just I don't know, push your guy a little bit. We're going to throw it up to DK. DK's probably going to win. And what do you know? I forgot who held. Was it Anthony Bradford?
Anthony Bradford, yeah.
Anthony Bradford holds Buddy. What can Ryan Grubb do? What is he supposed to do? He said, we're going to roll to the left. I don't know. Could you push him? Could you just get in the way? It takes 2 seconds. The play is 2 seconds. All you got to do is just roll to your left, throw it up to DK, 9-yard gain, 8-yard gain. You're out of the back of the end zone. Cool. We can probably run the football. That doesn't happen. Safety. Ryan Grubb, they showed him in the press box. He's over here sweating bullets like, I honestly don't know what else I can do. I have no answers for this. So to your point, Mike, cut him some slack indeed.
Yeah, I'm not as hard as this is without watching the film, but I'm not as hard on him, off first glance. Because there's some you have to believe your guys are gonna block it up right. You have to. Any play you call, you have to believe, now some plays you're like, all right, this is a quick thing. We're gonna trust Geno to get the ball out, but every play it starts with your boys up front. So I'm gonna cut him some slack a little bit. Again, I do think motion is gonna be important. Maybe moving the pocket a little bit, perhaps some under center play action stuff, maybe to help those guys out a little bit. However, I do think that minimizes Geno's strength. I do think Geno is very much like, give me an empty, I'm gonna get busy, or give me a shotgun so I can see how the picture is changing. Because that's the downside to play action a little bit. If you do from under center, you're turning your back to the defense. And in these days, when they're rotating all the safeties and everything and all these disguises, like Geno could see something pre-snap, go back to fake the handoff to Ken, he turned around and the whole picture has changed. Now, that's why you watch film, but you just put your quarterback at a disadvantage, right? When you do that type of stuff. And there's only so many bootlegs and whatever you can do, to really protect your quarterback. You would like the whole field to be open to him and you make the defense cover every blade of grass, so to speak. So I'm willing to cut Grubb some slack there because I thought he did as good as he could. The other thing, though, to finish this answer to this question, what I do think we're going to see from Grubb is what we saw today in terms of matchup hunting. I thought Grubb, when the situation allowed, did a good job of matchup hunting. I'm pretty sure Tyler was the target on the interception. I mean, Geno got hit. It kind of is what it is. Every play after that, I'm pretty sure all of Tyler's targets were against Riley Moss. Like Grubb saw a white corner and said, we're on it. They got Sertan on DK. We'll try that when we can. But what we need to do today is go after the white guy. Is what it is. That's why there ain't that many white corners, I think. Because teams probably know our boy's going to get picked on. Because he did. Tyler ain't practiced in full all summer, I don't think. He came out there, quote unquote, limited, and was just barbecuing Riley Moss, even for the game winner, quote unquote, like the clincher, on a great one-handed catch, which was actually good coverage by Riley. But I think that's Grubb's thing. It's like, let's find the matchups. Sometimes it'll be DK, sometimes it'll be Noah. In this game, it was our veteran receiver, who's been a perennial 1,000-yard guy, touchdown machine, great spatial awareness, great route running against Riley Moss, who I believe is a second-year guy and a first-year starter. So that was the matchup. Grubb went and found it when he could. Another good example before we move on to the next question is Zach Charbonnet's touchdown. I believe for some reason, the Broncos came out in a heavy personnel grouping. I think they had 5 down linemen, only 1 backer, and they had 5 DBs. I think the Seahawks used to call that their penny package. The Seahawks were in 11 personnel. I have no idea why the Broncos were heavy. That was stupid. So Grubb sees that. Geno sees that. What does he do? Where's the matchup when we're light and they're heavy? Okay, it's on a running back because they're probably going to have a big guy on our running back. What do? Zach Charbonnet will route wide open tug. That's matchup hunting. Grubb didn't tell me that, but just looking at the scheme, I'm sure if when I talk to him on Thursday, that's probably what he's going to mention. You go heavy, Zach can run routes. So can Ken. Barbecue chicken, Used to see a lot of Shane Waldron doing that whenever he would go heavy and you get a linebacker on Colby or Noah. Very few linebackers can run with Noah Fant. Ball game. You know what I mean? So that, I think, in terms of identity and plan, we'll see a lot more from Grubb. He even flashed a little bit today. I liked that. And the film will tell me more, but I thought he did a good job of seeing, like, all right, who can we exploit? All right, linebacker, white corner. All right, cool. Let's see what we can do.
This next one is from Chris Leeper at Rosebug_22. How many games do they give Tomlinson and Bradford? They struggled a lot on Sunday.
Yeah, it was not great. To their credit, though. Oh, I went to look this up during the while we were talking earlier. Only 3 pressures allowed in the second half, according to True Media. So there you go. 1 by Connor Williams, 1 by Stone, 1 by AB. Not bad. Only 2 QB hits. That is in 13 snaps. Pass blocking, which is not a lot, but weren't totally atrocious in the second half. So I bring that up to say, if you're Ryan Grubb and you're Scott Huff, the O-line coach, and you're Mike Macdonald, you look at the film and say, what is the likelihood that the second half is who we are? Is the first half a blip or a trend? Is the second half a blip or a trend? I tend to lean towards, because of how good Denver's front is, or I think it's going to be, that the second half might be more indicative of who they are. It just took a little bit. Maybe some jitters, mental stuff. I don't know. I didn't talk to enough linemen post-game to really know. I don't know a lot of these guys well enough to get some really candid answers anyway. I have to work on that. But I think you might be able to give Lakin and AB the benefit of the doubt, particularly AB. I think he's got more room to grow. Lakin is like in year 10, kind of is what it is probably at this point. But I do think you probably give him another game or two before you're like, let's call around for some guards, or let's call up McClendon Curtis, or let's call Raekwon O'Neal back, or, let's put Olu in, whatever. I think you give it a little bit more time because of how the second half looked. Because if you look at the second half, they were trusting those guys in pass pro. They were running. You can't avoid both your guards. You're going to have to run one of the directions, right? They were trusting both of them. They're running to the left. They're running to the right. They were pulling them, trap plays, everything. They were mixing everything up. So if you can look at the film and decide, okay, the second half is who we are, that looks more like what we are, then you don't have to panic at your guard spots. And there's an argument for that. Because, again, I don't think they just changed the scheme in the second half. It was a lot of, hey, guys, do what we do, what we've been practicing. Just do that, and we'll be fine. It looked like that schematically. So if that's the case, you're not calling for guards after week 1. In part because guys ain't just a bunch of starting caliber guards out here. A lot of people struggling. A lot of defenses were winning games today. So I think you give it a little bit more time, in part because the benefit of the doubt can maybe be given to your guards and your center because of how the second half looked.
This is from @_Don Chu. Have you heard anything yet about potential moves at right tackle and or guard? Do they still believe they have coachable talent at these spots?
Yeah, of course. They drafted Mike Jarrell. They've been developing Stone for a little bit. They still have McClendon Curtis. There's a reason you keep all these in-house options, because guys can go down. Abe's his knee is on the mend. John can call around for right tackles. God bless his heart. Maybe he finds something. But it'll probably end up being like last year, where he called around when they lost Abe and Charles. He got McClendon Curtis, and he got Raekwon O'Neal, and they didn't play because there's not just a bunch of ready-to-go linemen on people's benches. There's just not O-line depth across the league. There's not. That's why they get drafted so high, and particularly tackles. So if George's out for a little bit, yeah, John's going to make some calls. He's supposed to. But is he just going to find a replacement that can just ready to roll right away? No, that's not how it works. If that type of guy existed, he would have been called and got that guy. And every team played this weekend, so there's other injuries too. There's other teams that might need help too. They're in a better position, maybe more desperate, or
Rams,
or a team might have had depth, but their depth just got hurt, or their starter just got hurt. So now they don't have disposable linemen. I hate expendable. Let's use expendable. They don't have expendable linemen now. So I haven't scanned the landscape, but I just wouldn't hold your breath if you're hoping that John if George is down bad, that John just pulls something out of his butt and upgrades or, gets serviceable linemen for help. It's just not how it works in the NFL. You never see that. Look at last year. He was playing Jason Peters a bunch of snaps. They played Jake Kerr in a bunch of snaps. Stone Forsythe a bunch of snaps. It's just hard to find depth there. And the teams that have depth don't want to give it up. They just don't. And if they do give it up, it ain't cheap. So, yeah, I think everything you're going to see of significance will probably be in-house at the O-line spots. All of them.
JG, he asked, do you think we see Christian Haynes over Anthony Bradford anytime soon.
I just think that's going to be an ongoing comp. Really, I don't think you start or bench anyone off one game, really, because part of developing and part of coaching is the belief that guys are going to grow. You know, you don't just throw a guy out there because, all right, if he sucks today, we're not going to play him no more. Well, no, that's not how you think in week one at any spot, whether you're picking your starting quarterback or your kicker or whatever. You usually have faith in them being able to learn from mistakes. When you're thinking about playing rookies, that's usually what you want to do. Like, all right, this rookie might not be better than this vet at this particular spot, but we believe in his ability to grow. Like, he's going to play, he's going to make some mistakes, but when we show them on film, is he going to be able to get better? And that's just not rookies, but that's everyone. So it applies to O-line too, you know? Like, you start AB over Christian because you believe that if AB has some issues, all right, we're going to fix them and then get better. You believe he can do that. Whether that happens is whatever. But that's just that thought process is generally why you don't give up on guys after a game. That applies for corners too, you know, like Kobe Bryant, I think his first snap, maybe his second snap, he gave up like a 67-yard touchdown. I think of Jerry Jeudy on Monday Night Football. Right? Like if the whole thing was let's never play Cody again because he gave up a deep, no, that's dumb. You put Kobe in the game in that situation because you believe that he'll get better. He'll learn from that. I don't think Kobe gave up another touchdown all year. You know, definitely nothing deep like that. So it's the same thought process with your young guys, whether they're a rookie or not. You know, it's can I put you out there? You learn from your mistakes, get better. And that's why I brought up the second half numbers, because in this regard, I do think you can maybe give the benefit of the doubt to your big boys because they turned it around not only just mid-game, but now you're thinking maybe you can turn it around from week to week, you know? So I think you give them a little bit longer of a leash because of how the second half looked, man.
Dennis Gill 10. Other than the K9 injury, why did the offense get cute on 3rd and short?
You know, I love this question because it actually allows me to talk about something Tyler mentioned to me in training camp. I asked Tyler, hey, man, what gives you faith that you'll be better on 3rd downs this year? You know, because they were bad on 3rd downs last year and the year before that and the year before that. But today, what did they do today? Are they better today? Ooh, 4 of 12. Not great. Oh, my God. Denver was 5 of 18? Oh, Jesus. I didn't even peep that till now. Hey, man, that's awful. Sorry, guys. Got distracted. But that is, Chris, that 5 of 18 on 3rd down? Hey, man, Sean Payton got his work cut out for him over there. That is a really bad number. Let me see what they were in the second half, at least. Seahawks were, 3 of 7 in the second half. That's what's that, 43%? Yeah, that's good. That's much better. Anyway, I bring that up to say, when I asked Tyler about it, he said, Michael, one of the things, well, this was in a media scrum, so he wasn't speaking just to me, but it was my question. He said, one of the things that's going to be different this year is that we're not going to be beholden to the down and distance. Like if it's 3rd and 2, we're not just going to only have plays to try to get 2 or 3. Like we're going to use the whole field when we have the opportunity to, and it'll keep the defense off balance. You know, like maybe we just try to get 2. Maybe we try to get 10. Maybe we got a shot play lined up here, a little play action, whatever, right? It's not just going to be, all right, it's 3rd and 5, everyone run 5 yards, turn around, you know, or just a route at a 5-yard depth or 4 yards or whatever. You use the whole field. It makes the defense have to defend the whole thing. Case in point, Tyler, I think his first catch today was on 3rd and 2 for like 16 yards. You know, I think it might have even been on play action as well. But the point of that, and it wasn't like he caught it and ran for an extra 14. It was a deep shot, I believe, on our poor guy, Riley Moss, got picked off. A white-on-white crime there from Ryan Grubb. I bring that up because that's part of their philosophy too. And I actually agree with it because it's harder to have tendencies in that regard. Because if you're like, all right, later in the season, let's say it gets to week 10 and it's 3rd and short. Well, a good defense is going to be like, all right, well, here's what they put on film. Here's all the 3rd and short plays that they love. Maybe a wrinkle or 2 here, but like, here's how they're going to try to get us. Or here's all the 3rd and medium plays. You know, like it's a lot harder to pick up on tendencies if on 3rd and 1 you have this one time all right, let's just get a yard. This next time you're like, we're about to get 50 right here if this play works. You know, I do like that being part of your identity. I think is important. Now, Chris, here's what I have to hurt your feelings here for a quick second. What you should not do on 3rd and short is call a screen pass. That is not getting cute. That is getting moronic. Screen passes. We had one good year of them. Just one. Shane Waldron figured it out 1 year. He took all that magic with him to Chicago. Apparently, he didn't teach Caleb none of that stuff, but he just took it with him. Maybe it's in his suitcase in his new crib in Chicago. Maybe, but Chris, he didn't leave that on Ryan Grubb's desk to take with him. All the good screenplays are gone. I think I'm looking through my notes right now. If you guys hear the pages turning, I'm looking for all the screen passes because you guys know I write all this stuff down. Noah Fant failed screen pass on the second drive. Let's see. Another failed screen. This one to who's number one? Oh, Laviska. Fail. The play in question that sparked that third and whatever play, that was to Zach Charbonnet. Fail. Like, guys, Grub. We talked about this in the preseason, bruh. Take all the screen passes, put them all on a little play sheet. Make sure it's not laminated so you can ball it up for dramatic effect. Take that joint and throw it into Lake Washington. I know you can reach Lake Washington from your office. If not, have Gino throw it. Like, he can get it there. Ban screen passes. That is not getting cute. That's just dumb. I don't think they should do that anymore. Oh, yeah. That was a failed 2nd and 19 screen to Zach. Come on. What are we doing here? 3rd and 1. Looks like a screen to Zach that failed. Chris, what's going on? What's up?
It's the first game, man. As you talked about earlier, it's the first game. Give it some time. Players need to be better, obviously. But I'm not giving up on the screen after the first game. You know me. Y'all know me. We not giving up after the first game. I hope against the Patriots, they double the amount of screens. Make it 8. Okay.
Oh, so you want them to lose.
No, okay. I just think they can be successful with it. They just need to be better. It's called execution. I'm going to go back and watch the film and see what happened. Obviously, clearly, the Broncos on Sunday read the screen pretty obviously quite well. So hopefully they can disguise it better. But I don't want them to give it up yet because I do think Shenault can be effective in the screen game. I think maybe not Charbonnet, but I would love to see Ken Walker. And I like the idea of Noah Fant because why not? Catch the defense off guard. That's what a screen is. Catching the defense off guard. They're blitzing. You throw a screen at them. Oh, my gosh, it works out. Obviously, you just went through and explained how it didn't work out. So we're going to move along. You ready for the next question, Mike?
No, I'm not. I have more screen hate to get off. But this is more statistic. So they ran 5 screens by my count. This is just a loose hand count. I don't have like an official charting of it. So we got a screen to Noah for 2 yards, screen to Shenault for no yards, screen to Ken for -2. So now we're at 0 yards on 3 tries. Mm-hmm. Screen to Zach for 0, and then a screen to Zach for a loss of 1 on 3rd and 2. So I believe if my math is correct, they ran like 5 and gained nothing. And you want them to double it. You want them to run 10. Okay.
Absolutely. I want them to.
Y'all hear that, folks? Chris wants y'all to lose next week. That's what he wants.
When it works out, we're just going to have to back Mike into a corner and remind him not to give up because the screen game can be effective. The Seahawks just have to execute and be better and choose better times other than, actually, I'm not mad because to your point, for the empty screen to Fant on 3rd down, okay, obviously they need to get something quick. Offensive line was bad the first possession. Still not great. So obviously
that was 2nd and 7, by the way, the screen you're referring to.
Oh, well, that is true. Because they had a false start with Shenault, and then what? Ken runs for 3.
I think a Ken run, yeah. So come on, man.
All I'm going to say is I'm not willing to give up yet. I know I said double the amount. Why not? Execute better. Don't get into don't create issues. On that play, there's a false start. You back up, you lose yards, you change the whole game plan. Maybe if that didn't happen, Mike is talking about the 5, and one of them was a positive gain of more than 5 yards. I think, my goodness, can you get 7 yards on the screen? Help a brother out. I'm standing tall for the screen game because I know it can be effective, and y'all ain't helping my case at all. You're making me sound crazy, but I believe because guess what happened last season? It was effective certain times, but to begin the season, it was not because I remember, I don't know if it was the first game, but I know there's a couple games Mike had his little stats pulled out and was ripping me about the screen game. So you know what? I'm going to remind him. It's the first game. It's a long season. Not the Mariners, but the Seahawks can figure it out. I have confidence. Next question comes from Rob Guman. Hope I'm saying that last name correct, but he wants to know, what are your thoughts on linebackers Dotson and Baker's performances on Sunday?
Yeah, you don't get good run numbers like they had today without everyone being involved. But just generally speaking, I thought everyone in the back seven tackled really well because the Broncos offense, we just kind of poo-pooed on it for a little bit earlier, but what it did, it created some one-on-ones, quite a bit of one-on-ones actually, which is what you want.
Yeah.
But like we were mentioning earlier, they don't have the horses for that outside of 33. And outside of him, it was just a bunch of guys who were just getting hit and falling. And they were getting hit by Rayshon. Rayshon tackled really well. He might be someone I highlight later in the week because I thought him and J Love were all over it. I thought Tyrell was really all over it. There was like one I thought he was just bugging on. But outside of that, he played a lot of snaps. So if that's the only time I saw him bugging, I thought it was great. I think he dropped another pick, though. He got hit the jugs. He dropped one of the yeah, he did, right? Yeah.
Yes.
He dropped one against Cleveland and then today. That's tough. It's tough. And it's funny, he said he was walking around VMAC this week with a tennis ball in his hand because of that drop. And he said Spoon was on him all week about it too. And then he come out and drop another one. Spoon gonna be in his ear just yelling all week. All week. Oh man. He is. And rightfully so. Catch the ball. But I thought Jerome looked a little funky to start the game. I thought he might have got better throughout. He might be someone I have to go back and look at. No one stood out in a bad way. Put it that way. Like, that's probably the most encouraging way to put it. I didn't come away thinking, because sometimes, Chris know, I might hit him be like, yo, such and such needs to just go ahead and start a podcast. Because football, not his bag. Not. That could be offense and defense. But sometimes it's just so evident from the live watching, like, yo, this person is not playable. And we've seen that. We've seen plenty of games that look like that on defense at multiple spots. I didn't see any of that today from the linebackers. Some stuff early, perhaps, but nothing that makes me think that anyone needs to start a podcast, which is really, unless they want to do it for fun. But if, no one has to for like to make, ends meet, whereas some people across the league, you can see Deshaun Watson, go ahead and order you some mic equipment, buddy. Microphones, headsets. You are going to be a professional podcaster soon, sir. I didn't see anyone on Seattle defense look like that, including the linebackers.
He can go play in the UCF or AFL, whatever they got. He'll be fine over there.
Nope.
Okay.
I think his arm is shot. I mean, that's not a Browns podcast, but yeah, you guys know that. You guys have seen it. We've seen Trey Flowers have games like that. Quentin Dunbar, Cody Barton. What's his name last year? Devin Bush. There's guys who just, there's been games where we don't have to watch the film. We're like, oh, this guy was unplayable today. There was none of that today, including from the linebackers.
Brendo Pretendo, how would you rate the safeties?
Yeah, I thought that without watching the film, I thought they were really solid, and I thought I was really impressed by how well Julian and Rayshon appeared to be on the same page, because I could see from the press box them communicating quite a bit, and it was really loud in there. I don't know how well that came across on the broadcast, but it was rocking, particularly on third down. I didn't realize there were 18 of them. 18 third downs is a lot. And maybe that's why it felt so loud, actually, now I think about it. 18 is a bonkers number. Jesus. And you could see Julian like, yo, hey, Ray, like telling them stuff, and you could see them communicating and, shaking hands after to show that they did the right thing on a particular play. I thought they communicated well. That's, step two. Step one, tackle well. Both of them tackled really well. And you can just tell when safeties tackle well because they're very similar to like outfielders that can't catch. Like, we always know the camera's only on you. Like, it's not like a D tackle or something who maybe is not getting to the ball carrier. No, when you're a safety and you miss, it's bad. And the other team usually scores. You had not really any of that. A few misses, but nothing like one of Rayshon's misses, for instance. He met Javonte in the hole, and he just bounced off him because that kid is special. But that's not. I'm not looking at that and being like, "Oof, let's get Rayshon out of here," because he was there that was a hard hit, pads popping, So I thought those guys did a great job communicating and hitting. The coverage stuff I have to watch the film to see, but just those two things, A grade off first watch.
This is from Kate Ashby. Who on each side of the ball surprised you the most today?
Yeah, that's a good question. Me and Chris were spitballing this one before we press the button to go ahead and let it fly. I don't know if anyone surprised me, but the guy I did, and me and Chris both noticed him, and this is how you know what kind of football nerds we are. We both were like, man, AJ Barner blocking his ass off out there. It was, he really was, man. And it's not surprising, right? Because he was a blocking tight end in college. They drafted him to be a blocking tight end. He blocked in the preseason. So he blocked in week 1. Not surprising, it all adds up. Check, across the board. I just was happy to see it. I don't have any specific plays in mind when I say that. I just know he kept showing up in my notes, and my notes are kind of all over the place. I was just like, 88's doing this thing. Good for him. That was of the rookies. I thought that was like probably the most positive thing. There wasn't a lot of rookies out there. And then I wouldn't call it a negative, but there wasn't a ton from Byron Murphy that I saw pop up. Maybe film will be different. But I do want to mention his name just to say that, like, you got to remember, guys, he is a backup interior defensive lineman. Those guys, statistically, are not that productive. Defensive tackles in general are just not that statistically productive. So give Byron a little bit of a great amount of curve to start. He's not just going to be walking every center back in the regular season like he was in the preseason. And if you think about it, he really only did that against the Chargers, right? So give him some time. I think he's going to pop, but I'm not surprised that he didn't first game. It's going to take some time when you're a backup. Whereas AJ is damn near a starter because of all the the injuries at tight end.
Count July Vader. Did Tyler Lockett prove that he, and this is in all caps, is not dead?
Yeah, what's the line? Rumors of my demise were greatly over exaggerated, or something like that. There's a cliche about that. Yeah, I mean, anyone who's been following me for a little bit knows that Tyler Lockett is in the category of guys I gotta see you stink for me to think you stink. I'm not ever going to try to predict or be ahead of the curve and like you're washed up. Tyler's too good, and he's too good without relying on a ton of superior athleticism. Obviously, he's a good athlete, but it's not like that's how he wins. Like Tyreek Hill, for instance, he's just faster and more agile than the DBs. So you're cooked. Tyler is more calculated and smarter, and his spatial awareness is elite, right? Look at the one-hander he had to win the game, basically. Like, come on. Tyler going to be able to make that catch when he's 41. Is he going to be on a team when he's 41? No. Will he be able to make that catch? Yes. So I never thought that he would just fade into the abyss and just be this useless, washed-up old guy. Perhaps me and Tyler being the same age makes me just not want to call him old, because then that makes me, by definition, then I am old as well. I'm not old, so neither is Tyler. I think his birthday is like next week or something. Turns 32. He still got it, man. And this is the important thing on Tyler, like we talked about earlier. Tyler, he may not get to the point where he's barbecuing the other team's number one guy. That's just hard to do. Very few guys do that. DK doesn't even do that every week. Tyler is almost always going to be, if you got some weak link dude, that dude's going to be barbecue chicken against Tyler. You're not going to be able to put your rookie or your first-year starter or your guy who's like a little half step slow or whatever, doesn't have elite ball skills against Tyler all game that's going to work. He's still good enough to find out your weak link and exploit that. Now, does the money match up on all that stuff? Probably not. That's why they had to redo his deal. But just on field, yeah. Tyler's always going to be able to do that. He is. He's too good of a route runner. His feet are too good. Hands are too good. If you put a white guy on him, he's done. But Denver's the only one doing that. Maybe the Eagles. They don't play the Eagles. So, yeah, Denver's the only team doing that. But if you just put a guy who's not quite there yet, to quote Devontae Adams, then Tyler's going to always be able to exploit those matchups.
This next one comes from Ryan Turner at Turns 44. If you guys could bottle up one aspect of today's game for season-long success, what would it be?
Ooh, without question, the running and hitting. Without question. Because that's what it's always going to be, man. Yep. Like there's a reason that Mike Macdonald is doing that, and he's preaching that, because he knows he ain't this scheme genius. Like he knows ball. Duh. He's smart. Duh. But he's not even the only person running this scheme. You know, the Titans are running this scheme. The Dolphins are running this scheme. I think both of those defenses had good days today. I don't think they gave up points in the second half. I don't think their defenses did. I don't know how the Bears scored, but like the Titans apparently had Caleb in Hill, right? Trevor Lawrence didn't score in the second half, I don't think. I think there was some fumbles there, but you guys get the gist. You know, the Chargers are running this scheme. Like the Raiders scored 10 points. Like there's other teams running this scheme now. So it's on top of your own team putting it on film, other teams are putting variations of it on film too. So what are you going to hang your head on when it's just not the scheme, when the X's and O's can't save you? Hey, man, our guys are going to be near the ball and they're going to hit the snot out of you. Well, that's always going to translate. That's going to translate at home. That's going to translate on the road. That's going to translate in September. That's going to translate in January, whether it's a sunny day in Seattle or a rainy, windy, snowy day in Chicago in December. If you run and you hit, that will always win you games, you know? So I think, yeah, you bottle that up and you take that with you wherever you go.
All right. Got a few more, Mike. This is a fun one, and this is from Sean Bodehane at Bodeheasy. I love the Seahawks content, but I love more having conversations about the history of this game. So let's get you boys a little off topic for a couple minutes. Who are your top 5 fastest NFL players ever?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't have a 5, but I mean, you give me Reek, Randy Moss, and Deshaun Jackson, and you can't go wrong. Those are like, you just see how different it is. Maybe even DK too. DK is 4'3" at 225, but his 4'3" stands out in part because he's so big as well. But still, he's just 4'3" at 225 or whatever. It's just, what he running 100? 10-3?
10, yeah, 10-3, yeah.
I think it was like 10-3-7, 10-3-8. What? I'll take DK against pretty much anyone. I mean, Reek. Can I use this question and talk about Reek for a second, actually?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I will do that. Reek's one of mine as well. The pick he had today, Chris.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm glad Julian Love talked about it post-game. That is such a hard play. Now, it's a bad ball. Most interceptions are bad balls. That's why the defender catches it. But, like, to come all the way across the field on a shallow route like that is hard, man. I remember one day in practice, Reek did that. This was 2 years ago. And I remember Pete, might have been out of nowhere, just being like, you guys didn't see it today, but he came across the field and picked off a ball. Like, he was like, it's one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. Because Pete, in all his years of coaching, 50 years of coaching, that type of play, that being able to get that shallow little route, not only be there for it, but to catch it. He did that last year too in practice and almost picked off Tannehill like that as well. I think he just dropped it against the Titans last year. That is such a hard play. That takes ridiculous speed. Like, it's just unreal. Like, I know Reek caught a lot of flack last year, deservingly so in some regards. I know he was hurt. Nobody cares, but he was. That mattered. It does matter. But Chris, the speed that he has, that type of play right there, I know it's triple coverage. It was so bad that the announcer was like, oh no, before he even threw it. Like, I said the same thing in the booth. It looked terrible. But just Reek's speed, you know, that is next level stuff. It's legitimately a weapon, because that would be a route that's a guarantee. And instead with Reek, it's not only a PBU, like, okay, we taking it the other way. Just nuts. Absolutely nuts.
I would have to go Chris Johnson. I'll go Tyreek Hill. I'll go Devin Hester. I'll take Dante Hall.
Oh, these are great. These are all great.
Number 5, you know what? I'll take one from your list. I'll take Randy Moss, because he was 6'4" and he's just striding. I don't even know if he was really sprinting. I feel like brother was like, yeah, I was going 85%. So you wasn't even going crazy? Nah, fam. I just knew I could beat everybody out there in front of me. So those are my 5.
Yeah, he's different. Honorable mention to the kid who just broke the 40 record. Forget his name right now.
Oh, got the Chiefs. Worthy.
Yes, thank you. That dude,
he showed it.
I can't believe the league let the Chiefs get him. Another topic for another day, but that was nuts. And the Bills who traded out of that pick. Oh, crazy. Anyway, we can go to the next one.
Insane. Last one comes from Jimmy Lee. Mike, give us an honest assessment of the food at Legion.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor. Legion Sports, whatever. Just Legion. I don't know if it's called Bar and Grill or whatever. Good spot. Went there for my birthday in the summer. Just went there on Thursday again as well to celebrate some of the homies in town. Really good time. Catfish is money. Mac and cheese is money. I don't know if I could have it again though. I'm lactose, so that didn't go well. But it oh man, it's some good stuff. Just a good vibe in there, man. I don't eat red meat. I don't know if how many listeners know that, so I'm not the best judge of some spots, but they're just like their birthday stuff is good. They do that big what's that thing called, the cake with the ice cream? Is it like Pizookie or whatever? It's got that funky dessert. You know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
It's good. It's good as hell though. Yeah, once I show you a picture of it, you'll know. Fire though. I'm trying to think what else I had. I think I've had the wings from there. Solid. That might be it though. I love catfish. So good catfish. If you give me that, I'll eat that all day. Catfish nuggets, fire. But overall, just a good vibe though, too, man. I saw Cam and Sherman the other day, showed love, told him about it. Cam also big as hell, by the way. I don't know if they showed him raise the flag on the broadcast. Cam is just a monster of a human being. He's so huge. Like he's so big as hell, man. Him and Marshawn both got big after they retired. Just crazy stuff. But anyway, yeah, shout out to them. Restaurant is fire. I recommend anybody who's in town, if you live here or you're visiting, definitely check it out in Bellevue. Look it up, Legion. Very fire. Highly recommended from myself.
Easy money. There it is. But look, it's been another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to listen, watch. We hope you enjoyed the show. We will come back later this week with, oh my gosh, standout plays. We have a few that we're going to get to. I'm assuming, Mike, you already have a couple that are probably running through your head. I know I got a couple that are in my head, so we'll do that later this week. And then also,
we're going to call my homie Chad too, though, for the Patriots. Make sure I get my homie Chad on.
So, yeah, first things first, game preview, then plays of the week. But, yes, we'll have 2 episodes dropping later this week as well. And then, obviously, we're back to it because before we know it, the Seahawks will be taking on the Patriots. Mike will be on the road in New England, on the other side of the country. So appreciate all the love and support. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Thank you for all of that love. Thank you for all the support, the Twitter questions, to understand the references on the pod. We got like almost a community now. It gets all the inside jokes and everything. It's great. 2 things before we go. # ban screen passes. And it's Apple Cup week. Go Cougs.
There it is. You guys have a wonderful week, and we will holla at you later.